Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Studstill Smash the Milkman, Tom the Superhero, Raging Demon, Mass Keaton, Lucas from Game Over Hell, Ozzy Garcia, JC, Megan Caruso, Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, Rick Firestone, Dave Jackson, Jenny E, Retro Overdrive, Soha, the Emperor, Storm Beagle, Matt, aka Stormageddon, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Keith Gasper, the Retro Vixen, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands podcast, Eshevent, Alan Bingham, Mike the Ref from Backbreaker Gaming, Ryan, Player One, Low 5 Alex, Alt, Renner Dreaming, Omi, and Makeshift Money. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
Hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we marvelously meet made men making mincemeat mornings magnificent. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest Ryan Trainor from the Bonzai Chat podcast. And, as always, your host, Shane Big Dick Tanuki Dragon Salter.
Wouldn't it be cool if, like, when Mario gets the Tanuki suit, instead of flying with the tail, he just flies with a big ol' hog?
Like a pig? Or are you talking about a penis?
Yes.
You want Mario to put his pig in a penis and fly with it?
Yes, I want Mario's pig in a penis. Yes, that's...
Mario's pig in a penis?
That's what you said. I'm just going along with what you
I
said.
thought I said Mario's penis in a pig.
No.
Oh.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's like a turducken, but like probably a felony.
No, not if the pig's in the penis. Strong start this week, Jets.
Yep.
We're doing great.
These are the kind of things.
Classic.
Right? These are the kind of things when people that I know are like, oh, you have a podcast. Well, what is it? I'm going to check it out. And I'm like, maybe don't.
I kind of do the same thing. Like, oh, that's so cool. What is it?
That's how you get fans. Because then they definitely want to listen.
Yeah, I have a pseudonym. Its name is Rick Firestone. It's called Pixel Project Radio. Go check that out. I mean, I hope that's not throwing shade at that, because that's a fantastic show. That's why I'd recommend it. Not this one. But welcome back to the show, Ryan Trainor. We were trying to figure out how many years this was in a row. We're thinking 5.
Yes.
Five, right?
5 is
okay.
Right. We got it. Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, always. And the reason we have you here, because, well, first of all, because you're amazing. But if people don't know the backstory, it's because when we were a humble, lowly podcast, as we are now, but even more humble.
Just implying we're not.
Exactly. Like, Ryan was one of the first people who ever like commented and reached out to us and let us know that he was listening to our show. And we were like, oh, this is cool. And he had a podcast. And we were like, come on board. So we're happy to continue this tradition. We are so happy to have him continue to be on with the show with us. And for a huge episode like this, this is a big fish today. So welcome back so much. It's so great. I already know I said this, but it is great to have you here, Ryan.
Oh, thank you guys. Always like being on here.
I would hope so. If not, it's like, I hate being here. Tradition
he's
sucks.
been doing it 5 years out of pure spite.
I seriously
Exactly.
sit here and just wait till next year.
Just
My family's like,
seething.
what are you doing? Don't you have stuff to do? And I'm like, I gotta wait for the next podcast. Sorry.
That's what I do. I wait on a yearly basis. I have 26 different personalities. This is bi-weekly technically. The flight, you never know what you're going to get. Oh boy. But we are here to talk about Super Mario Brothers 3. Have either of you heard about this before this week?
Nope.
Okay. Oh,
I
interesting.
think we're on a roll with these like really obscure titles at the beginning of this year.
Super obscure.
Yeah.
Super obscure. We just got to keep the roll going. But before we get into this game, which turns 35 in North America, like around now, which is insane to me. I'm ancient. Every single time I get up and walk around my house, I feel 90% disabled.
That's a oddly specific number, Chris.
I know, it's very oddly specific. It might go up. Who knows? Before we get into that, we like to talk about what games that we have been playing lately. And we always start with our guest, as tradition dictates. So, Ryan, what games have you been playing lately?
Well, I've been playing Vampire Survivor, but I know that's not. I know that's like been around, and I think you guys have talked about it before. Have you both played it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The reason why I started to pick it up now, because I just saw that they had the DLC for the Ode to Castlevania, and oh my God, it is pretty awesome. And that's all it took for me to get on that bandwagon, because the game is fun. I don't know why I put it off, and I do like just the game itself, but the Castlevania add-on is pretty awesome. I just been starting playing it, so I'm at like can barely. I think I just got to like being able to survive like 15 minutes maybe in some of the levels, but it's like just cool to see all the sprites that they put in for the Castlevania stuff and all the characters you can unlock. And just they really do shout it out to that series in this DLC. And I know you guys are Castlevania fans, so I wasn't sure if you guys picked it up or tried it out.
I haven't tried it. Have you tried it yet, Shane? I have it, but I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I haven't tried the Castlevania DLC. No, maybe it's the thing that gets me back into it. I played a lot of Vampire Survivors like early on, kind of fell off of it a little bit. I've gone over the reasons why that is, but yeah, no, I mean, that sounds cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think when I get a chance, I do want to hop back in and see what that's all about.
Yeah, definitely would recommend it for Castlevania fans.
I feel there's no better time if you've never played Vampire Survivor to get into it right now. It's like every day that passes is a better reason to get into Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, just pick it up and play. It's just in a weird way fun and relaxing until you want to throw your controller at the TV. But that's like most games. So
That kind of sums up my gaming experience, because I've mostly been playing the game we're going to be talking about next time, which is just fun and it's relaxing. But if you're trying to stuff it all into like a review kind of mindset, it almost defeats the purpose. I wouldn't say I've thrown my controller at my computer yet, but it's not difficult. It's just
there's always time.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Other than that, I've been playing some Saturn games for iOS Saturnalia. Played some Dark Legend, which is a fighting game, which is better than I expected. And then I played Bullfrog's Theme Park for the Sega Saturn, which take this as you will, but it played pretty much exactly as I expected. So look forward to moving on to the next game there. But other than that, like, I just have not been playing any games outside of content for the show, which is becoming a common theme, which I'm a little sad about that. I mean, there's always the Sunday night streams where I played that Pizza Hut demo disc.
Heck yeah.
Which was a travesty. That was a travesty.
Hey, at
except
least,
for
yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, except for Ape Escape.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, at least you had Ape Escape.
So go listen to the King of Games 1999.
Did you get a free pizza out of it?
A moldy one.
Yeah, it'd be very old.
Yes. A big New Yorker, which apparently now only Domino's does. I don't know. How did that happen?
Didn't Pizza Hut do like the Bigfoot? Wasn't that like that big rectangular one or whatever?
Yeah, that one was the shit. I don't know. Yeah, that was Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was great in the late 90s, man. I love their shit back then. Now
we
suck.
used to be a country.
I found a
Yeah.
fun fact that in the first Ninja Turtles movie, they were sponsored by Pizza Hut, and like that was their thing for all that movie and whatever. But in the movie, they eat Domino's, and I didn't
That
really
is true.
pick that up, and I was like, "What? That's so weird." Because I do remember all that stuff, but that's a movie, not a video game. Sorry.
Well, I mean, listen, you could tie that back. Also, the arcade Ninja Turtles game had Pizza Hut logos in it. So
It did.
There you go.
Cool.
Didn't the NES game have it too? Pretty sure it did.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And which is funny because they're in New York and they're either eating Pizza Hut or Domino's.
Yeah.
Which you
And
definitely wouldn't fucking do.
Yeah.
No. I'm a Chicago pizza guy. Chicago pizza for life. I think it's infinitely better than New York pizza. But if I'm going to New York, I mean, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm not eating Pizza Hut or Domino's for reference. Just pointing that out.
There are better pizza places.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, just
Anywhere.
here alone, I'd rather go to Moon River or like Carmine's Pizza or something like that. Those are far superior. But anyway, that's hyper specific.
Little Caesars. Give me Little Caesars over those two fucking dive pizza joints. They suck.
What?
I need to go back to Papa John's
What are
someday.
you talking about?
Yeah. Little Caesars far superior.
To Moon? Are you fucking kidding me? Okay.
Not to Moon River, to Pizza Hut and Domino's.
Oh, okay. Well, I gave you two examples of local pizza establishments, and then you followed it up by
Yeah.
saying, I would rather have Domino's than those two dives.
I didn't say Domino's. I said Little Caesars.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
And also 5-star.
Yeah. Yeah. 5-star is like, I don't know. To me, that's like it's like the Yingling of pizzas. Like, it's not like super good craft style, but like, it's also not a bud. So like,
Yeah.
anyway,
We're getting super Jacksonville
this
meta
is
right
super
now.
relatable to like 5 people. Okay. So going on to what I have been playing. Unsurprisingly, it's mostly a lot of Diablo 4. The new season just started, so we have the Season of Witchcraft, which, I've learned, and maybe it's a lesson I continually learn, actually, because I forget, and then it's kind of like a cyclical thing that I really should just not listen to all of the people on YouTube and Reddit and wherever else who are just constantly bitching about how the game sucks, because I'm having fun with it, and that's really all that matters. There's a lot of people that are complaining that this season isn't great, that it's kind of like just a lazy sort of like best of all of the previous seasons, which in a way is kind of true, but also it's still enjoyable. So like, I don't really see the problem. I don't know. People are too picky, but anyway, I'm having fun with it. So I'm leveling up my Barrage Rogue, which once I hit end game, I'll be transitioning to a Rain of Arrows build, which is going to be super, super sexy. So that's most of my time. I played a little bit of Cruel, that game that our patron Randall purchased for me. I also played it on stream for a bit there during my backlog potpourri, where we went through like 3 different games. I've done a little bit more of Path of Exile 2, but honestly, the new season of D4 has kind of eaten up my ARPG time. So that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, also, I have been told that I should mention, because I have absolutely no tie to this, but so oddly enough, so my wife plays Marvel Snap, which is, I still think is funny because it's a competitive card game and she's not a competitive player whatsoever, but it seemed to click with her. So she really likes playing it. And she wanted me to mention that apparently the company that makes Marvel Snap was under the umbrella of ByteDance, which if you're familiar with current social BS, you might know that that is the company that owns and runs TikTok. And given that TikTok was briefly shut down in the US, Marvel Snap was also shut down, and the dev studio had no forewarning about it. They just came into the office the next day and was like, oh, our game's fucked. So that's neat. But after the couple of days, everything came back online, and then they immediately moved to separate themselves from ByteDance and from anything having to do with TikTok. And so now they are self-publishing. They're running the show. So that won't happen again. But the crazy thing is they gave a apology gift out to all of the players. And if you'd been playing for like really any amount of time, it was a pretty low threshold. They gave you a metric shit ton of stuff, just like a ton of in-game items and like currencies and rewards. And I've played enough mobile games to kind of know, like, I don't know the context of all of, because I don't play Snap, but like it seemed like a ton of stuff. So she was very happy about that. So there's your RHP current gaming minute.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm happy to hear that from Marvel Snap fans.
Yep.
Congratulations. Your app isn't as compromised as it once was.
That's right.
Maybe.
You've broken free of the communist shackles or whatever. I don't know.
I guess. Anyway, let's move forward and talk about some game called Mario 3 that, just some small game, really, or at least 35 years ago.
I don't know, man. It's I don't know. The cover's weird. It's just some Italian guy furry. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Some Italian furry. And sometimes his name's on the left side and sometimes his name's on the right side. This is not a political argument, by the way. But Shane.
Mario is a centrist. Anyway, yes, go on.
Shane, if you would, could you please give us a brief history of Super Mario Brothers 3?
Third time's the charm is a phrase often used when the first two attempts fall short of expectations. However, this certainly does not apply to the Super Mario Bros. Series. While expectations for the third installment were understandably high, the previous games had already set a pretty high bar. In the US and Japan, Mario had become synonymous with video games, and Nintendo dominated the market. Nintendo EAD began developing Super Mario Bros. 3 shortly after the release of its predecessor in 1986. Initially, the team considered taking Mario in a completely new direction with an isometric viewpoint. There we go, Mario Diablo. I want that. However, they ultimately decided to stick with the traditional 2D platformer approach that had brought them so much success. Despite maintaining the 2D format, Super Mario Bros. 3 introduced several innovative features. The game implemented a scaling difficulty, with early levels being relatively easy and offering more power-ups and extra lives, while later levels presented a much greater challenge. New power-ups were introduced, including animal-themed suits like the raccoon and Tanuki suit with limited flight ability, a frog suit for easier swimming, and even a Hammer Brothers suit. The game also featured a world map where players could actively choose their path through the game world. Additionally, Super Mario Bros. 3 introduced memorable new enemies like Chain Chomps and the infamous Angry Sun. Super Mario Bros. 3 was first released in Japan on October 23rd of 1988, becoming the second best-selling game in the country that year. The North American release was delayed due to a chip shortage, but Nintendo used this time to their advantage by promoting the game through the theatrical release of The Wizard. It's so bad. The game finally launched in North America on February 12, 1990, to overwhelming success. It sold an estimated 8 million units in its release year and achieved lifetime sales of approximately 18 million copies worldwide, making it the third best-selling game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Critical reception was universally positive, with many reviewers hailing it as the best game ever made. The game's level design and variety were particularly praised. Super Mario Bros. 3 has left an indelible mark on gaming history, consistently featured on best games of all time lists. It has been remade for Super Mario All-Stars in 1993 and for the Game Boy Advance in 2003. The game has also been re-released on various platforms, including the Wii Virtual Console in 2007, Nintendo 3DS and Wii U in 2014, the NES Classic Edition, and of course, Nintendo Switch Online. Super Mario Bros. 3 remains a beloved classic, demonstrating that sometimes the third time truly is the charm in the world of video games. And that is your brief history of Super Mario Bros. 3.
All right, thank you, Shane. And I don't think there's much to add there. I always look at the development team when it says Nintendo EAD, and I always think eat a dick. I don't know why. Yep, I guess the other team that made it, if you look it up on various sites, is Nintendo R&D 4. So whatever you want to call it, but Nintendo eat a dick. Thank you for providing us with Super Mario Bros. 3. Anything about the brief history that struck out to either of you?
The wizard was cool.
Yeah.
No, I think it seems all pretty straightforward.
Do you guys remember the wizard?
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah. Power Glove, baby.
Yeah, Power Glove, and man, just playing. That's how I play Super Mario 3 every time, as much as like those kids were in that last competition, just mashing the button, and it just doesn't look right at all.
So you just maintain your skill level throughout life, which always does bring nostalgia, I guess. I hope not. Maybe you've gotten better. We'll talk about it as we move forward. But let's get into our personal experiences. We're going to start out with Shane here. Shane, what are your personal experiences with Super Mario Bros. 3?
Oh, let's see. I owned the NES cartridge. I remember playing it fairly often. I don't know, strangely, or maybe not strangely, I don't know. At least for that era, like the NES era, I feel like I played the original Super Mario Brothers like more than this one. I don't really know why, but that just seems to be my memory of things. However, when the Super Nintendo came around and I got a copy of Super Mario All-Stars, I ended up playing 3 a lot more then. I don't know why. I'm not sure what the like rationale behind that was. I can't speak to it, but yeah, I've owned this game in various incarnations over the years, right from the beginning and all the way up to, well, actually the way that I replayed it for the show this time, which was the Virtual Console for my 3DS. So there you go.
Oh, interesting. So my personal experiences, man, I remember that. I don't know how I remember the hype for this, because I think I got my Nintendo in Christmas of 1989. And I think so because I got Double Dragon 2 at the NES. And if you look up when Double Dragon 2 came out for the NES, it was like early 1990. It doesn't make sense because I remember wanting Super Mario Bros. 3. I remember going to McDonald's and getting the toys, like specifically the Mario spring thing that like had a little sucker cup on the bottom and you pressed it down and it bounced up and
I
he was a little
still
Tanuki
have that thing.
or raccoon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember specifically having that and playing with that toy all the damn time. I love that toy. I remember the commercials where they had all the kids in the United States chanting Mario and it's like panned out and there's Mario all over the continent. So this game was like a massive deal. I don't know how I just got on the Mario train. I guess it was just because like typical 5-year-old, very influenced by the media, especially a game about California and playing stuff. But I don't remember watching that movie until like after Mario 3 came out. And I don't really remember particularly liking it. I remember there was a scene at the end of the movie where they were playing Mario 3. I can't remember if I watched it before or after I got Mario 3, to be honest with you. I have no idea. The way time progresses for anyone under the age of 10 is massively weird. I think we can all attest to that. So whatever was going on back then, I have no idea for the most part. But I remember playing it quite a bit. And this, certainly I had various iterations of this game. I had the Super Mario All-Stars one. But for some reason, I feel like when I got Super Mario All-Stars, I mainly like the lost levels, maybe a little bit of Mario 3. And in terms of gameplay, kind of spoiling a little bit, I would say I like the original's gameplay over the Super Nintendo version in terms of sheer gameplay. But that's me. Like, I remember the hype. I remember playing it a ton. I remember it being part of my NES library. I don't know if it's left bros or right bros, because apparently that's a thing, because collectors and fuck. But yeah, Mario 3, kind of like Golden Axe, but I guess with a lot more gravitas to it. It's just a game that's ubiquitous with my gaming childhood. Like, you played it. I know I owned it more than Golden Axe, but I don't remember the exact moment when I played it, whether or not it was at launch or somewhere around there. But it's been part of my gaming life for relatively forever. So that's me. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's kind of the same with you two, where I did get this for the NES, and I remember playing it, and I did like it the most. Like, I liked 2 a lot, just for how weird it was, and I just really was super into the first Mario. When 3 came out, it just was kind of everything I wanted out of a Mario game. But anytime I think about playing it, I do think of playing the Super Mario All-Stars one. And that was like, going back to this episode, it was kind of funny, because I was like, oh yeah, like Super Mario 3, like I've played that, like I know that game. And when I like went to play it again, I'm like, wow, this looks so old. Am I playing like the right one? And because the All-Stars one had different graphics, like a little bit better, kind of, or was it like the exact same?
No, I think
better graphics.
They were slightly improved. Yeah, I think the bigger change was when they kind of like pasted those graphics over onto the original Super Mario Brothers. That was interesting. But
that's what kind of reminded me that I must have played All-Stars just like a ton more than the original. But I know I had it, and I wouldn't have played Mario All-Stars if I didn't have like the other ones to, back it up and stuff like that. So that's kind of my history of it, kind of along the lines of your guys's.
And that makes sense. Like, everyone around our age, because we're all relatively the same age, I think has a very similar experience for this, because it was 18 million copies back then. If you're playing video games back then, that pretty much means it touched you in some way, in the good way. but anyway, let's move on to the plot and the story. And as we have been doing, we'll read the story out of the manual. The story is as such, because the deep narrative of Mario is important to note. The Mushroom Kingdom has been a peaceful place thanks to the brave deeds of Mario and Luigi. The Mushroom Kingdom forms an entrance to the Mushroom World, where all is not well. Bowser has sent his 7 children to make mischief as they please in the normally peaceful Mushroom World. They stole the royal magic wands from each country in the Mushroom World and used them to turn their kings into animals. Mario and Luigi must recover the royal magic wands from Bowser's 7 kids to return the kings to their true forms. Goodbye and good luck, said the princess and Toad as Mario and Luigi set off on their journey deep into the Mushroom World. And below, as I think, is Iggy. And Iggy is saying, we took 7 wands from the 7 kings. Each of us has one. Our father has instructed us to protect the wands. Well, they were being protected, and then you stole them. So, all's fair and honor among thieves, I guess. Anyway, so there's the plot. I think there's a misconception that the princess was kidnapped. Again, and she does end up that way. But at least it doesn't start that way, which is cool. Beyond that, what do you guys really think about Mario 3's plot? How about you, Ryan?
As a kid, I thought it was really awesome. it was like the first one that I felt like actually had something going on. Saving the princess and all that, yeah, that's the whole Mario thing. But I just thought it was kind of how I look at Mario now, of like all the characters and just weirdness of how Mario is. It really came out of 3's story. The whole animal thing was really weird that, they like changed them into animals and stuff. Cause I'm like, I guess that was the wands doing it, but I just like the introduction of the Koopa kids and all that stuff was really cool. And, it gave more to Bowser, and Bowser was an actual, not just this big dragon you fought or dinosaur or whatever it is. It's like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it's like the most amazing story, but this is Mario we're talking about. But, I think for what it is, it's good especially for its time, is just like, I don't know, something that Mario never done before.
That's an interesting take. Not saying it's a bad take. It's just interesting because I never really thought about like as perspective from the kid, that as a kid, seeing it as a more detailed, intricate thought. I'll get more into that now that you've kind of given your position. I'll talk more about that in a second, because now I have to think about this a little bit more. But Shane, what do you think?
So I recall having actually a pretty similar perception of it, in that I thought it was really neat that it really kind of like expanded on the world of, like the Mushroom Kingdom and all that stuff, because it was the original, it was what it was. It kind of introduced everything, but it felt very contained or like compartmentalized, which at the time we didn't freaking know any better. But like when you get Mario 3, because 2 is just like, that's a weird outlier. We all know the whole thing about that, and it's a dream anyway. So there you go. But this one,
Doki fact.
Yeah, exactly. Your doki fact for today. But yeah, so we all know about that. But 3 felt like a really cool expansion on what we understood about, like, Mario and the princess and Bowser and like all this thing. Cause like they talk about the Mushroom Kingdom in the first game and everything, but it's this like really sort of almost nebulous idea because, you don't really see a whole lot of it in the first game. And a lot of it looks pretty similar, mostly for technical reasons. But it was cool. Cause then you get like these 8 completely different, very distinct worlds, which at the time was like, mind blowing. You're just like, holy shit, like this is a whole new like chapter in Mario. Although I find it interesting because I don't know exactly where this lands, that like it was confirmed a long time ago that this is a stage play. Hence the curtain.
It's been alluded to. It's been suggested.
No, I'm pretty sure it was confirmed, actually.
Nintendo Power confirmed.
No, Miyamoto said something about it. Yeah. I don't know if it was Nintendo Power.
Here we go. Yeah, I was looking at this. Yeah, Miyamoto confirmed the theory that 3 is basically presented as a stage play, and that explains the curtain, or like the fact that in some levels the platforms and stuff look like they're stage props, like that are like attached to like a backdrop and things like that. I don't know. Maybe it was just a cool presentation thing. They were just like, what if we made this look like a play? That'd be neat. And it doesn't have any more significance. I don't know. But anyway, all that to say, yes, that was kind of my take on it initially as well.
I will say, as a kid, you didn't know it was a play.
No.
Yes. I mean,
no, definitely not.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it is really cool when you think about it.
It took me a long time. And it's like the Paper Mario series, like, does a lot with that, and then I'm like, that goes all the way back to Super Mario 3, and 3 was the first time it made sense with the whole backdrop and like the curtain rising up and all that. At least clicked in my head.
Yeah. Well, when you really look at it, but there's no real reason to believe anything, because it's what's there to really. I mean, like, why would you think that until like it's explained? It's like, oh, this makes sense. Also, interestingly, on that boot up screen, on the title screen, how the bottom, the tiles, the checker tiles on the bottom, how they kind of like scale up. Apparently that's an artifact from when the game was isometric.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Which is kind of cool. But for my take on that, you know what? I'll put it this way, because I was going to come into this because like we kind of laughed at Golden Axe for trying to establish lore and establish a plot. We're like, it's beat 'em up, don't fucking need plot. And here we are with Super Mario Brothers 3, and we're like, oh, I love the Koopa Kids and expanded the world, and look at all the things it did for Mario, and it wasn't just go rescue the princess. And you know what? Both things can be true at once. So do you really need to know the plot of Super Mario Brothers 3 in order to have a good time? No, you do not. It doesn't really matter, nor should it, in order to have a good time. It's good that there's these little bits in there. And again, like, I had always assumed for the longest time the Princess Peach was abducted at the beginning of the game. But like when I played it this time, Bowser was like, no, I have abducted her at the end of stage 7, and then you got to go save her, which is interesting. But what it does do, and both of you are right, it does expand the lore of Mario. It does create new characters, and it doesn't do it in a ham-fisted way, unlike some rodent and friends tried to do later. It's really like how you build a franchise and how you brand out, especially when you consider that in Japan, the first 2 Mario games were just the same game, except one was much harder. Like Mario 2 expanded a lot of lore technically when you look back on it, but that wasn't a Mario game there. That wasn't really a Mario game in the greater cultural zeitgeist where these games were being made. It only really was in North America. So for them to turn around, you look at the leap from Super Mario Brothers 2, the Lost Levels Super Mario, the Japanese one, to Mario 3, and how they continued to develop that world and expand it. It's really quite admirable, and I'll give it that. But again, you don't need to know anything about wands or whatever. It's kind of you have the plot to just kind of justify give the player something to do, as is most games during this time. Do I think the developers cared about it? Do I think Miyamoto cared about it? Yes, because he's a character, and I expect him to be the type of person that would care about these things. But you as the player just need to know, go play the game, have a good time, beat the things. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's not necessary. It's kind of stupid, but it's not a bad stupid. It's a good stupid, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, and while we're talking about this, I want to potentially reiterate, because I know I've said this somewhere before, but to confirm my stance that I do not accept Nintendo's retcon of the Koopalings whatsoever. They are Koopa's children. That is who they are. That is how they were introduced. That's still how they were in Super Mario World too. So for 2 games, he had like 7 or 8 kids. And then suddenly there's like, oh, well, I mean, they're not really his kids. I mean, his only real kid is Koopa Jr. No, fuck off. That's no, I reject this.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, there's kids. Fuck you, Nintendo. Fuck you, Miyamoto. You're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong about your own game.
We know better than you do.
Right.
Shut up. Shut up and make video games. Don't get involved in video game discourse. Old man. Future's now.
I always thought too, with like you said, you don't have to get into the plot, any of that to enjoy this game at all. But it is, at least for me, when I was playing this as a kid, or even now, it still even got me when I was redoing this and stuff. It just, when you get to the kings and all that, and it's like you see that they're transformed and Toad's freaking out and just like, oh my God, I need help and stuff like that, which is like, you never really even see him like that in the games. I just always thought that was a cool touch of, I guess, lore and stuff, where you see that, then you see the outcome of them turning back into the kings that they are. And you're like, oh, there's actually other people in here besides, Princess.
Yeah. And there's also cool things they can say to you sometimes if you're wearing a certain outfit. I don't know all of them.
I've seen a couple of those. Yeah. That's pretty cool too.
But let's take that opportunity to kind of move right into the gameplay, because this is normally where we take most of our time talking about this, but I'm not sure if we necessarily will here, because, I mean, really, what is there to say about the gameplay that hasn't been said about Super Mario Brothers 3? Not that we really care, because this is our time to talk about it, but I just wanted to posit that. And I don't know, I have a bit of a reputation, so I will save my thoughts until last, I guess, and let Shane lead this off. So Shane, How about you kick off the gameplay? What's going on with Super Mario Brothers 3?
Man, let me tell you, this sure is a Mario game, Chris.
I mean, it is, yeah.
There sure be a lot of platforming. I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's Mario. It's basically this is like the FF9 of Mario games, in that it's kind of the culmination of like all the things they learned from the previous games, and they kind of like put it all together, right? I would probably say that, and Super Mario World is superior to this in every single way, but we're not talking about that game right now. So yeah, I don't know. Like, for the most part, it controls very well. You know, it's tight, like you would expect it to be most of the time.
Like a tiger.
Yeah, like a toiga. But having said that, I do feel like I need to point out that going back to this and playing it again now, and I haven't really picked up Mario 3 in, God, I don't even, like, at least 10 years, probably longer. It's like weirdly slippery at times. Like I got,
really?
Yeah, like I got accustomed to it again, but there's times, and it's mostly when you're running, and there are a lot of levels where you probably should run to either make jumps because you need the speed to get across like a chasm, or because the stage is moving, whether you like it or not. But yeah, there are definitely times where that little animation of Mario kind of like skidding to a stop or whatever is it can be it was my downfall, at least a couple of times. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, I think the gameplay is pretty solid. I think it evolves the formula in some pretty neat ways, mostly with the power-ups. I think having the bigger selection of power-ups is really cool. Plus the ability to kind of bank them as you go along is, I think, a great addition, because then it kind of gives a little bit more agency to the player to be able to kind of pick and choose like what you want to use to go into a certain level. Or there's a certain element of trial and error there too, where you'll go into a level blind for the first time because you don't know what to expect, and then you die or whatever, and then you're like, oh, okay, I should probably bring this in, and this will make this level easier. Like, I'll be honest, there were definitely at least a few levels where I was just like, how many P-wings do I have in my inventory? Like 4? Yeah, okay, fuck this level. And then I just flew through the whole thing. So, I mean, that definitely happened. Also, strategic use of the star is great, because when you hit those little Hammer Brothers spaces, those guys are dicks, especially on the big level, which I think is like World 4, where those chonky motherfuckers like stun you when they land if you don't jump at the right time. Nah, man, just pop a star before you go in there and just run head first into that bitch. Done. Yeah.
What version were you playing, for the record? Just so, because you said slippery, so maybe because there are people, purists, who like to compare the different versions. So which version did you play for this episode?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, like I mentioned, I played the virtual console version on my 3DS. So I don't know if...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was just a port of purely the original. I'm pretty sure it is, because the graphics weren't updated like All Stars was. So
Right. I know you said that already, and I just kind of forgot. My brain has holes in it. 90% of my brain has holes. That's going to make no sense to almost anybody, but I don't care. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the gameplay here?
Yeah, the slipperiness, I definitely noticed that. And I was playing the original, like, NES version, at least the ROM of it. And it was, I just forgot how much you could, how much you could get, like, you think you get a jump and then you just basically bite it on the next thing and all that stuff. And it just really made you have to, like, I guess, re-engage on what you're going to do with, how you're platforming in these games. But I mean, overall though, it is, like you said, a Mario game, and the controls and everything and gameplay is as solid as it could be. It's all about the power-ups, and, the banking of them is a really cool thing. It's almost like an RPG-esque kind of thing added to Mario, where you like just have this stock of items that you could go in and do whatever to any level or any thing in front of you. And just that was a cool thing to see in a game like this, where you couldn't do that. yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot of challenging stuff in it, and it does irritate you, but it's Mario. That's what it does. There's going to be those levels. So, but overall, it's a pretty solid gameplay, I would say.
Yeah, ice levels still suck ass.
Yeah,
just for the record. Slippery physics are for the birds, man. That stuff sucks.
Yeah, I hate that in any game.
Yeah,
and you already said it was slippery, period. So I bet you're having a great time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have to lead with the disclaimer here that I've been very vocal about Super Mario Brothers 3 and how I think it is an overrated title. And there is a reason that I say that, and I will get to that reason in this discussion. But first, I gotta address some of the things that both of you said. Mostly agreements in some sense, and disagreement in others. To start out with the power-ups, I think that there are only 2 power-ups I really gave a shit about. And those were the raccoon, the leaf to give you the raccoon suit, and the fire flower. I think everything else was just overly gimmicky. And I think the Hammer Brothers suit is cool. I think that's a really cool outfit. But I think like the frog suit is so specific to water levels. And in a lot of those levels, I'd really just rather wear the fucking fire flower because it's easier to kill enemies.
Well, and the movement sucks too. Like trying
frog?
Yeah, trying to move as the frog, like unless you're just constantly trying to jump, like just walking, air quotes walking, feels real janky.
Well, underwater, he's the frog suit's great.
Yeah, sure. Not on land though.
But no, on land it sucks. And you can't run really with it either.
Nope.
And you can't kill enemies with it. As far as I know, underwater, you can do that with the fire flower suit. So I don't know. I think just everything else is overly gimmicky. And the Tanuki suit's just a raccoon suit with the ability to become invincible, which is so limited. And the Tanuki suit's availability is so diminished that it's technically not even really worth it. I mean, it's cool and it's cute, but whatever. So those are the only 2 suits that I really valued. But that being said, like the raccoon suit is so OP and it makes the game a joy to play because like all your jumps, if you have the raccoon suit, just the ability to land slower, make longer jumps, and really take advantage of the level's design, which playing through this, I played through this game without warp whistles, everybody, because I love to bitch about my warp whistles. I love to talk about how they're bullshit. And I found out quickly I wouldn't be able to use it because my NES has half a dick left. And I think the pinned connectors are fucked up. So it wouldn't actually let me access the area where you get the first flute. I don't know how that happened. I can't explain that, but that's what happened. I couldn't even get the warp whistle. So there's that. So I played through the game, all 8 levels. Didn't play every single stage, but I did play all 8 levels, played all the way through. And just hot damn, I think the level designs are great. And I think one thing about Mario 3 that gets overlooked, I think this is something, I mean, if you're into Mario as a speedrunner concept, you'll probably know what I'm talking about here. And a lot of people are going to probably say, I already knew that. But there's a mentality I have with Mario, especially after this game, and I've had it with other Mario games, which I call FEMO, which is fuck it and move on. Like there's a bunch of blocks there, question mark blocks. There's coins in there, but why do you need those coins? To get extra lives. There's so many other ways to get extra lives in this game. It's insane. Like you don't need to waste your time trying to find secrets and trying to find coins. There's no reason. Just run to the right and avoid everything. And like, by the way, that's fun if you're just trying to do that, because there's a challenge in that as well. Like precise platforming. This is where I have a issue with you guys saying it's slippery. Not saying that you guys didn't experience that, but I actually thought the controls were precise and they were tight, and I had no issues landing on anything or doing any precise platforming whatsoever. And that really made it so like a lot of these levels that I was getting through, I did so in like 20 to 30 seconds. Even though you could tell the way the game was designed, it wanted me to spend a lot more time in these worlds. I was like, nah. Why? Like, what do you want me to do exactly? Do I get bonus points? This isn't like Super Mario World, to your point, Shane, where exploring rewards the player. It's almost like exploring punishes the player. I actually think that's a flaw in Super Mario Brothers 3 that isn't discussed. What's the point of looking for stuff? When people are like, oh, it's really cool, this game has secrets. Great. What do these secrets give you other than just being cool? And you can like that. I'm not trying to say you can't like that. Enjoy your secrets in Mario Brothers 3. But does it unlock new stages? Does it give you special abilities? Does it give you anything unique? Oh, it gives you a warp whistle so you can skip over the game in the greatest game ever made. I'm sorry, what? But I mean, I got to call a spade a spade. I think the level designs are great. I think if you play it that way, you can. I had a great time. I had a great time with all of that. But the one thing I will say, and I love the difficulty scaling. I love the way it ramped up, even though, again, at the end of the game, I was having some visual issues. So, I mean, it just happened to be at the very last stage. So when I say I use my P-Wing at the last stages to get past the hardest stages, sure, that's a little bit of a cop-out, but my NES was also freaking the fuck out. Call it what you will.
I mean, I wouldn't hold that against you. I actually did the same exact thing. Like I kept a certain number of P-Wings on purpose because I knew that World 8 is a fucking shit show. It is.
It's not as bad. Like those levels that I hated as a kid weren't as bad. It's like the regular levels were torturous in a good way. Like they're just difficult. But the one thing I do want to state, and I'll repeatedly state, and this is my chance to officially state it on a Mario 3 episode, is that this game does not respect your time because it was 3 hours for me to go from pressing start to beating the game. 3 hours with no opportunity to save. And this is 3 hours from somebody who has played a lot of Mario 3 in the past. I'm not the best Mario 3 player, but I can make it through some levels pretty quickly. I know what I'm doing. And I didn't die a lot until like stage 8. That's when I started to have some deaths. That's 3 hours. Who has time to sit down and play this game for 3 hours?
Children.
And whenever you bring this up, children. Well, not even then. And every time you bring that up, well, you have the warp whistles. Are the warp whistles automatic? Do you just get them? Does the game just give them to you? No, it doesn't. You have to know the secret. The game doesn't tell you the secret, so stop using that as a cope. It's not a reason. It's not legitimate.
Wait.
Quit.
No,
Go ahead.
Fun fact, it actually does, but like in maybe the worst way possible because you'd have to then go back and replay it. Like the end of the very next world where you would have gotten the first, World 3 is where you get the first whistle, right? It's like that secret area where you break the rock. I think it's 3.
The World 1 at the World 1 castle.
Yeah. Oh,
you get that
one. Yeah. No, it was World 2 because it's the desert. That's what it was. There's another one there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the very next world, when you finish that world and you get when you get to the end and you get that letter for the princess, the letter says it. It's like, it gives you the hint of where to find it. It's like, oh, this guy took the whistle and he went to this place, like in the sandy area to all the way to the right or something like that. Like it just straight up tells you, but it's after you've already passed it by.
Yeah.
Thanks, princess.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, bitch. I could have saved you a lot quicker. Well, no, she's not in trouble, so why would she care at that point? You wouldn't have gotten captured if you let me know where the warp whistles were, princess.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean that's my biggest gripe, and I think that sticks. The game's just too long to beat in a single sitting. Oh yeah, all those people that say, well, you can use save states. Look, I would use the same argument on Blaster Master. It's just another game that you can't save and takes forever to beat. And I understand that gaming is a lot different today than it was back in the NES era. But if I'm going to talk about a game as it was, I have to point out its flaws. And then every single time, if you bring this up and it's just trying to cover up, so because I love this game, that's fine. Like, you play the game the way you want to play it. But don't tell me it's not a legitimate complaint, because it's very legitimate. And I do think it cheapens a game when you say the way that it's meant to be played is skipping over the overwhelming majority of it. I think that's bullshit. And I don't like that as an excuse to cover it up for its overly long game time. like my overly long time talking in the gameplay section. So I'll hand it over to either of you if you want to emphasize on anything here.
Let's see. For the gameplay, I don't think I have too much else to add. I will say that I did the same thing. I purposefully didn't use the warp whistles, even though I knew where they were. And every other time I've played this game, I always just did that. So there were some levels that I maybe have experienced once before, but mostly forgot everything about them because I would always just skip over them. So playing through all 8 worlds this time was refreshing. It was a good take on it. I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff in a while. I agree, Chris, that I think that that's probably one of the biggest gripes is because if you're talking about like when the game came out, the expectation of having that like solid block of time to finish it, that's a lot. I mean, we had the time as kids, but still, I mean, I think the general thing, right? I think we all did this was just leave the game on, just, shut off the TV, but leave the system on and then just come back to it. I know I did that plenty of times. Not that I think that's an excuse, but I definitely, I will say that save states absolutely made my playthrough a lot more enjoyable this time around, for sure. And I didn't really have to abuse them that much. It was more of just saving like in between levels. Like I didn't get real granular with it because I didn't really feel like I had to. But anyway, other than that, let's see. I think there's a couple things I want to throw in real quick. I know we're not trying to make this a behemoth of an episode or anything, but kind of want to weave these in, especially for a game of this notoriety. Some additional fun facts for gameplay that maybe some folks aren't aware of, because I know that I wasn't. In World 7, there is a muncher plant that if you hit it with a raccoon tail, they turn into unbreakable blocks. Evidently, that was not carried over into the GBA version, so that's specific to the OG. I think the other thing, I think this one's pretty well known now. Do you guys know about the chain chomp thing?
What about it?
That if you let a chain chomp tug on its chain 49 times in a row, it'll break free.
I
didn't know it was that specific, but yeah, I knew you could have it break free.
Yep. Yeah, it takes quite a few. Also, I guess because technically this is kind of in gameplay because it's part of the level design, but I did not know this either. But in World 6-4, there's actually a set of blocks way high up in the sky that form a cross that is only accessible with a P-Wing. And this was done as a joke by the developers, referencing the fact that Nintendo of America, especially at the time, had a very strict policy on not including religious symbols. So, fun facts there.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So, it's funny that it's in 6-4 of all levels.
Right.
That has no Christian connotation. I'm just thinking Mario 64, which is the divine rebirth of 3D, when you think about it. Yeah, that's a horrible way to describe it, but whatever. Sorry, Christians, I think. But one more thing about the game length, because this is my thing. I have to say one more thing.
Sure.
And I think I've said this on the show before. If you do think that my complaints about the game length are unsubstantiated or hyperbole or whatever, fine. But just know in the Famicom instruction manual, the developers apologized for not including a battery backup. I think that says enough.
There you go. Confirmed.
Yeah, there you go. They apologized for saying this game is really long and we didn't include a battery backup. Figure it out. Schmucks. Have a good time.
In your face.
They did that. In your face. We make what we want. We make a long game. Haha. Because we're going to port this to the Super Nintendo. You're going to buy it again. Haha. Greatest game ever. Anyway. All right. If that's all we got about the gameplay, let's move on to this game's graphics. And I'll kick this one off and I'll just say they're good.
Yeah.
They're not the best on the NES. But then when you think about it, it came out, midway through the NES's 10 years cycle. Starting in 1983 is the Famicom. 5 years after that, 1988, they were making games until 94. Yeah, games after this game that came out looked better. Not a lot of them, but I think this game looks good. I don't know what else to say. I think it. I didn't really pay attention to scrolling or anything, or I don't think there's any parallax scrolling, and The colors are detailed. The sprites look very good. No slowdown from what I could recall. I mean, if there was, it was probably in the airship stages when they're shooting a million different fucking bullets at you. But yeah, other than that, like, yeah, I mean, it looks solid. It just looks really good. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I love the graphics for this. And again, getting the sprites with again, not like super detailed, but to see a lot of these actual characters like and who they are was really cool. And again, going with like the Koopa kids and all that, like seeing the different Koopas that you had to fight was really cool. I always remember I was just like so blown away when it was just like, even it's just like different hair and stuff like that. And oh my God, there's a female one too. And it was just cool to see that they're not all just like, you do fight the turtle guy or whatever Koopa that's kind of in every level, but there is so many more bad guys that are just, part of iconic Mario stuff that we think of now that, all started from, Super Mario 3, and the graphics were probably a big part of that.
Shay?
I think it's interesting that you bring up the time that the game was released to, because I think it was probably even more maybe notice. I mean, nobody gave a shit at the time. I feel like I should qualify this. Like Super Mario Brothers 3 was enormous, right? Like the third installment in pretty much the most popular game series ever. Nobody was like, I don't know, these graphics are kind of mid. Like nobody gave a shit about that. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
So within that context, though, you have to remember, right, because of the ROM shortage and everything, this wasn't released stateside until 2 years after its initial release. So you got to figure you got this like 2-year lag where, other games were coming out and ostensibly were being released in North America that, potentially could have had better graphics in some aspects. And then you get a game that was already 2 years old, so it kind of exacerbates the problem a little bit, I think. But overall, though, I've always really liked the graphics. Like I said earlier in like the gameplay section, the ability to go through like all of these different worlds is kind of like real kind of pedestrian now, I guess. But this was, I don't want to, I really don't like using hyperbole, so I don't want to say like revolutionary, but it was something brand spanking new at the time, especially for Mario. Like never before had there been these like overworld maps that allowed you to feel like you were truly exploring the Mushroom Kingdom. You weren't just, going from one set level to another. You were actually seeing like how these things were laid out, and it just adds a lot to it. And the fact that they did intentionally put a lot of personality into each of the worlds, I think that really shows through in the graphics as well. Like I've said this before, I still maintain after playing through it again that I think my favorite level is definitely the giant world, just because I just love all of the like oversized sprites, like the giant question mark blocks and the big ass like Koopas with their like weirdly disproportionate heads and like huge shells. That's definitely my favorite one. I just really like the presentation of like all of the stages in that world. But it has, I think that's probably a good way to sum it up. I think the game has a lot of personality, and I think a lot of that is thanks to the graphical presentation. So yeah, was it like top tier? Maybe not, but contextually, I think it was definitely, a huge step forward for a lot of us. And I think it's held up pretty well.
To kind of build on that, what you see with like compare Super Mario Brothers 2 original, not Doki Doki 2, to Mario Brothers 3, and there's an amazing leap. Because there was like no leap from 1 to 2.
Oh, you mean the lost levels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an amazing leap. Even from Super Mario Brothers 2 USA or Doki Doki Panic, there's still a really good leap in terms of just the graphical presentation overall. keep in mind that The Legend of Zelda 2 was supposed to come out at the same time, roughly in the United States, as Super Mario Brothers 3 had everything kind of been on schedule. Because Zelda 2 came out in 1987. This came out in 88. This looks infinitely better than Zelda 2.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think there's much debate on that. So when this game came out in 88, it was like leaps and bounds, I would say, above everything else. But like when you really get down to the way this game was kind of designed, is it kind of goes to Nintendo's philosophy in this era, where it's more about the design choice rather than the actual graphical power. Because I look at the way this game is, and it doesn't technically do, in my opinion, anything too impressive. I mean, it does a lot of things more impressive than the early Nintendo games, for sure, no doubt. But like, I'm sure you could pick a lineup of games on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 89, 90, 91, 92 that technically were better games graphically and a technical level, like had parallax scrolling and all sort of graphical details and so on and so forth. But just the way that Nintendo knew their hardware better than anybody else for the sprite design, the world design, and those world maps always looked great. Even though like it's not technically the best, they just knew how to get the best design and just make it meld so well. That's definitely a strength of Super Mario Brothers 3 in my opinion. It's just, yeah, there's sometimes like some of those cannons where you could tell the background blends in, it doesn't look the best. And I could point to like Mega Man 3 or 4 and say that, yeah, I think those games, there's times that those games look like way better than Mario 3. But it's just everything is so synergetic in Mario 3, especially the big sprite levels and how they delivered on that. And it's great. Now in Europe, I was looking at some of the reviews there because this game came out in 1991 in Europe. And by that point, like the Sega Mega Drive over there had really sunk its teeth into that region, and the Super Nintendo was already out. So they weren't as impressed, which is completely understandable. But that wasn't the case here. We only had the Genesis at that point, and Sonic wasn't out yet. So no one gave a shit about that system at the time. And no one ever cared about the TurboGrafx 16. So we were more than impressed in the United States with Mario Brothers 3. But let's move on to the audio presentation for this game. Shane, what do you think of that?
It's really good. I mean, I really don't know what to say. Like, I think all of the, much like what I said about the graphical presentation, I think each of the overworlds have their own distinct theme and they fit very, very well. There really wasn't anything, at least to me, that stood out as something that was really grating or lackluster. Like, for the most part, it's all pretty solid. And it's, even from just a sound design perspective, it's everything that you would really expect from, you know, a flagship title like this. Yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I don't want to like just talk for the sake of talking. I really don't think there's too much else to say. I just think it's good.
All right. I'll echo that. Speaking of sound, that's an appropriate thing to say there. Koji Kondo did a great job here. One of the better soundtracks. I would call it a warm up for the next effort. But it's still iconic. It's still there's no qualms with anything here with the way the game sounds. I will say sometimes some sound channels, and again, this could be my ailing NES, dropped out when there's other sounds going on in the screen, which was kind of distracting. So it wasn't always. No,
that's not just you.
Okay,
that's just the game, because it was doing it on my 3DS too.
So yeah, that's kind of shit.
Well, I mean, is that just like is that just a sound channel limitation? Or is that just a technical limitation?
I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I think other games made up for it better. And it's just like, there's a lot going on. I can't ping it too much because for the most part, I won't say it's fantastic, but it does everything it needs to do. And the music soundtrack is great too. It's good. Again, don't want to talk for the sake of talking, which is exactly what a podcast is, but we have been talking. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Great soundtrack. And, you know, I'm going with all the stuff that you guys are saying, and with the themes of the worlds, the music fits really well with like the desert themes and like the the Iceland and like all that stuff. It just kind of, made you feel like you were in those elements too, with a lot of the music and the audio and all that stuff too. So they did a great job, and still had all the great Mario music you would expect from it.
Oh, that reminds me, because again, it's one of those things that we take for granted now, but I was just thinking about it comparatively. One of the other big things is like a dedicated boss theme. Like, you didn't have that before. Like in the original Super Mario Brothers, like you had the theme for the castle levels, but that was it. But with this one, you get that really awesome track that kicks off when you get to the bosses of the castles or the airships, or starts with that like da-na-na-na, like that. That's good.
That's really good stuff. Yeah.
Also, didn't know Koji Kondo was a fan of Diamond Head.
Didn't know that.
Okay.
Well, Am I Evil during the airship theme? You don't hear it?
I would have to listen to. I don't know enough Diamond Head to make that comparison.
Oh, well, the Metallica, but Metallica did a cover song.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Let me make sure that I'm getting the right song here before we continue on.
I say it's not. It's not quite as blatantly obvious, maybe, as what was that? The "Freak You Out" track from Vi. They were just like, "Would you like some thriller? Some definitely legally distinct thriller." I mean, are you talking about just the drum pattern? Oh shit, no.
Keep listening.
What? Oh my god, I never knew this. You're right. That is straight up that song. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, that's crazy. I did not know that, but nah, I'll never unhear that now.
That's pretty sweet.
Also, the cover art for Diamond Head is fantastic. There's a dragoon on the cover, and it's beautiful.
Hell yeah.
Anyway,
let's do it.
There is that. Anything else for the music and sound, or are we ready to move on to what our patrons have to say?
Let's do those pontifications.
All right, so let's get into our patron pontifications, where we read what our patrons let us know what they think of the game that's coming up. And if you want to do the same, just become a patron in our link tree and go to patreon.com/retrohangover. Of course, that link's in the link tree. For as little as $1, you can provide your thoughts. I posted in the Patreon. I also posted in our Discord. So we would love to hear what you think if you want to provide your thoughts on an upcoming game. And this is what we had for Super Mario Brothers 3. There's a lot, so we'll read as much as we can, which is all of them until like it gets too long, which we're not there yet. But anyway, starting with Omi, who says, when people talk about games that had an outsized impact on their childhood and defined a generation, this is it. This is the one that defined the 80s more than any other game. It's still my favorite Mario game, and it probably always will be. Thank you, Omi.
All right. Next up, we have Lucas from the Game Over Hell YouTube channel, who says, this is as good as classic 2D Mario can ever get. A plethora of power-ups, the choice to skip a bunch of levels or play through everything if you got the time, an iconic soundtrack, and a big set of levels that feel completely different to one another. And just the right amount of challenge. After all, even I can beat it. It's almost like a long theme park ride. My first Mario game was Super Mario World, but we discovered this game back then thanks to Super Mario All-Stars. Well, nowadays I don't care much for the All-Stars version anymore, but I'm glad that collection got me into the game. I still prefer the original Super Mario Brothers for my random pick up and beat urges, but it's 3 that should be in every top 10 for the NES. Thank you, Lucas.
Mass Keaton. When this game came out, Nabisco had a giveaway contest where you could win a copy of Mario 3 by buying 3 packs of cookies. We were blessed enough to win. I was so excited. But then I got worried. What if they sent us something other than Super Mario 3? What if we got something lame like $1 million? So I remember telling my mom, what if we won $1 million to please ask them to send Mario 3 instead? Children are dumb. That was good.
Like, why would you not just take the money and buy a copy of Mario? You know what? It's fine, Keaton. We love you anyway.
All right. Next is from Raging Demon from the Command List podcast. And they say, I didn't play this game until I was an adult, as I grew up with a Master System and then a Mega Drive. However, the fact people used warp whistles to actively avoid parts of this game is a testament to how fun it is to play through. Anyway, maybe I should give it more of a chance, but I probably won't. Yes, I know people will say it was a phenomenon, etc., but it's not very original and not as good as the one on the Super Nintendo. Just a rung on the Mario ladder. Thank you for your hot take, Raging Demon. I assume that you thought I had similar thoughts. But moving on.
That's right. Master System gang, rise up. All right. Next up, we have The Emperor, who says, I remember my neighbor's kids getting this game while I was still playing Mario Bros. 1 on my NES. Every time I could get to go across the hallway to their apartment to play this game, I would. Super Mario Bros. 3 is that one game that I still remember how to get the 2 flutes to this day to skip all the way to World 8. I'm almost in my 40s, and I can't believe I still remember that. This game is the gem that defined the third generation of home video game consoles. Thank you, Emperor.
All right. Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon, and the Fun and Games and Reignite podcast. To this day, this reminds me of one of my favorite NES games, and it has some of my favorite power-ups in the series, like the Hammer Bros suit and the Tanuki suit. Also, the airship theme and the final Bowser theme are absolutely some of the best songs in Mario history. I remember seeing the TV commercial for this. One of the first games I remember knowing it was coming out and waiting for it to release so I could play it. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Matt. All right. Next is from Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer from the Thunderdome Gaming Society YouTube channel. And Lunchbox says, this was peak Mario Mania. Due to the fact that Nintendo itself is a juggernaut, had a movie which was a glorified Nintendo commercial with Mario 3 as its highlight, really does say something about this game. Hell, it was a pack-in as well after its release. This game is magical. Everything about it is so different. Every world, stage, power-ups, it truly is a shining gem and is the blueprint for what they built Super Mario World with. While the game is a bit long and could benefit from a save feature, this is retro gaming figuring out what to do with itself. It's made to master earlier levels because the later ones get a little difficult, and that is the charm of NES games. This is why Super Mario Bros. 3 remains one of the best gems on the NES library. It's so damn good. Thank you, Lunchbox.
All right, next on the list is Storm Beagle from the Retrotopia podcast, who says, I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say about this one. This is a game that I played a lot as a kid. It was everywhere. The game is huge. Almost too huge. They gave us a lot of the iconic look and feel of Mario games ever since. The power-ups were great too. I'm not great at this game, but I still love it and will fire it up every now and then. Thank you, Beagle.
Next is Ray Ray. Mario 3 is an all-timer. They improved on the formula of Super Mario Bros. Tenfold. The levels, power-ups, and secrets still have incredible depth to this day. While future 2D Mario games certainly kept getting better, it is just so hard to recapture the experience of Mario 3 gave, and it's difficult to replicate the jump it made from its preceding game. I certainly won't argue if people call this their favorite game of all time, but I'm sure some mad Zodiac who was apparently not that great at this game will have something to say about this. Thanks, Ray Ray.
All right. Thank you, Ray Ray. I'm curious to hear what you think about some mad Zodiac after this episode is over. All right. Alt says Super Mario Bros. 3 is fantastic. Not you, World 7 and 8. I mean, that is the game. I love this entire game. Not you, World 7 and 8. Again, Alt, that's the game. It's by far tied for the best 2D Mario game without any contest to me. Not you, World 7 and 8. Alt, you're putting a lot of qualifiers on this. I'm sorry to interrupt your comment here, but come on now. The overworld map was so iconic with how you could run into an enemy event or mini game. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. And pick level 4/3 if you really wanted to. We kind of talked about that. P speed and being able to fly once you hit it for a bit was so cool and ahead of its time to me. A lot of what Super Mario Bros. 3 was used in Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario World. The only other real competition to decide which game is better, IMO. You can get into the big boot. That's enough to call it a winner in my book. I'm genuinely not sure which game I prefer more, but Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World are the only good 2D Mario games.
Wow.
Yeah, I said it.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Take your Yoshi's Island and go tongue a toad's arse if you think any others are better. I'm joking, obviously. I don't know what else to say because the music is iconic. The game plays extremely well. Not you, World 7 and 8. You said that, yes. I genuinely don't think I've had a bad time playing this game in all the times I've booted it up. It's a 9.57 out of 10 because World 7 and 8 exist, and 8 is just a bunch of auto-scroll levels. Thank you all. Make some really good points.
All right. Following that one up, we have the one and only Dave Jackson from Tales from the Backlog, who tells us of the NES and Super NES Mario offerings, Mario Bros. 3 is my least favorite. I'm bad at 2D Mario, so I hate how stingy Mario 3 is with power-ups and checkpoints. Sorry, what? Instead going with shorter, harder levels. If you love Mario and mastered the earlier games, I can see why you'd love Mario 3, but not me. But Dave, I mean, like, you know what? I'm not invalidating your experience, and thank you, by the way, for sharing your pontification. I just feel like I kind of have to disagree. Like, I was overflowing with power-ups playing this game. Like, you hit all the little mushroom houses, and I had like 3 pages worth of shit. Like, I don't know, man. Okay. Anyway, thank you, Dave.
And next is FF Cottage, California. GIF. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just because it said it there. Thanks, FF Cottage.
He posted a gift of the wizard in the Discord.
There you go.
California. Anyway.
All right. We have patron Lyle, who might give me some shit for not recognizing that song earlier. I don't know, especially since there was a Metallica cover. But anyway, Super Mario Bros. 3 is such a classic. Its peak NES and being included in All-Stars really kept it relevant and introduced it to other generations. I have some amazing memories of playing this both as a very young child and again in college when I dipped into retro gaming for the first time. Smooches. Smooches to you, Lyle. Thank you.
All right. Next up is Keith Gasper from the now very alive Main Quest podcast. Keith says, I've heard this game doesn't hold up because it doesn't offer saves, which seems silly to me since 99% of people won't be playing it on original hardware. Yeah, that's why. It's not 1988 anymore. It's 2025. With that said, well, it's not my favorite Mario game on the NES. It is the root of what all platformers would sprout from. It was impossible to think that video games would ever get better than this. Because of the mechanics, the story progression, and presentation, this might be one of the most accessible games of that era to return to. Thank you, Keith.
Next is Soha. I am sure Chris had a great time playing this and only had wonderful things and praise for this game. At a loud, incorrect buzzer. Thanks, Ashton.
Next is from Randall, our resident PC shill. And this is not a PC game, but he chimed in nonetheless. Thank you, Randall. And Randall says, staple platformer that will forever live like a parasite in my mind. Is it better than Super Mario Bros. 3? Thank you, Randall.
All right, we got a beefy one here.
Chonky.
Yeah, the pontification, not necessarily the patron. Alan Bingham says, wow, Super Mario 3. This is a very special one for me indeed. This was the first video game I ever beat. I played several other games before this one, including Mario 1 and 2, but all the others fell under the ball-crushing category of NES hard. Maybe that's why I had to have surgery on my balls all those years later. Fuck you, Nintendo.
Woo!
Anyway, I remember receiving this for my 8th birthday. My parents and I picked it up at the store the day before, but I wasn't allowed to play it until my actual birthday. They let me open it up and read the instruction manual, though, so I read the hell out of that thing. Once I finally got to play it, I fell in love. Day after day, exploring the various worlds, utilizing the all-new power-ups, and plunging deeper into the game. It was an amazing time for me. However, as with all the other games I'd played prior to this one, I sucked too much ass to actually beat it. That's what she said? Eventually, I got to witness another kid beat Mario 3 while attending some kind of work party with my parents. He was referencing a lot of helpful tips from the official strategy guide, so I acquired one soon after. Eventually, with the help of the guide, I was able to beat Mario 3, my first ever taste of video game victory. I do realize it may cheapen my first time by having used a guide, but hey, I was still in the single digits. Don't judge. Anyway, Mario 3 will always have a special place in my heart. Not only is it nostalgic, but I genuinely love the mechanics and the overall feel of the game. Super Mario World is often regarded as the peak of 2D Mario games in regards to how it controls, and while I do believe that is 100% true, I believe Mario 3 is a very close second. It's smooth, tight, and snappy while giving you enough power-ups to make the experience easier than Mario 1 or 2. I truly love this game, and I'm beyond elated that you guys are covering it. I can't wait to hear Chris gripe about the lack of a save mechanic.
I did.
All right, thanks, Alan.
I totally did.
He did. It's true. At least we generally agreed with him too, so there you go.
Hey. Thank you to all of our patrons, but it is time for us to give our final word on whether or not we think this game holds up today. As we are wont to do, myself and Shane will go first, and then we will let our guest have the final word. I will open this up, and I will say, yeah. I know a lot of people want me to say no. I know a lot of people want me to call this game trash. I know a lot of people want me to say I hate this game. I don't hate this game. I enjoyed every moment of the 3 hours I played this game. I really did. I think this game is really fucking good. It's a great game. Especially once I realized I don't have to get everything and I can just go to the end of the level and just avoid stuff, and not everything is worth exploring. And once I did that, my gameplay experience just like increased exponentially. And I had such a great time with this game. It's a joy. I really do recommend this game, and I recommend playing it on original hardware if available, or as close to original hardware as possible. That NES controller, I think, is the best way to play this game. I don't know if that would alleviate the slipperiness that was discussed in the gameplay by both Ryan and Shane earlier. I didn't experience it. I'm not sure what may have happened. I have no idea. I can't duplicate it. But I really did love my time with it. That being said, I wish I didn't have to spend 3 hours straight playing the damn thing. That is true, but I did, and I did love it. So go ahead, use your save states, use your fucking warp whistles, whatever you want to do. I recommend you just play through the entire experience, 1 to 8, every single one, because I do think all of these levels were very well crafted and smartly designed, and they should be experienced. That's why they were made. So do that. Yeah, Mario 3 gets an easy recommend from me, with that small caveat that, yeah, you're going to need to set quite a bit of time aside for it. But yeah, that's me. Yeah, I know that's going to be a surprise for a lot. Highly recommend. Shane?
I mean, yes, of course it holds up. I will say that I don't think I thoroughly enjoyed my time quite as much as Chris, which I'm genuinely surprised by this little switcheroo here, because I really thought it was going to go the other direction. But it's not that I didn't enjoy it. Like, it's still a fun game to play, absolutely. But there are a number of times in some of the levels that are just annoying or just frustrating to try to get through, to the point where, like, I was playing it yesterday evening. My wife was sitting next to me, and at one point she was just like, yeah, you sound like you're really enjoying that, because like most of anything that I was vocalizing was something to the effect of like, oh, fuck off. Or that was bullshit. Like I definitely landed that jump or something to that effect. So, I guess maybe just the general platformer gripes, sometimes, but overall, yeah, of course it still holds up. I mean, I think original hardware, I would agree, is probably still going to be the best bet. But I mean, having said that, it's still very, very much playable on pretty much anything else that you can get it on. So, don't feel like you have to do that or anything, because I think it's absolutely more than serviceable, wherever else you can get it, which at this point is almost anywhere as long as it's Nintendo. So yeah, pretty easy one.
All right. Ryan, are you going to make this a sweep? Or are you going to say it sucks?
Yeah, I got to give it to Mario. There'll be a sweep with this because, yes, it does hold up to me. But yeah, it's more than nostalgia, too, because I think it seems like everybody, even from the pontifications, it's definitely some that hit a lot of people's childhood and stuff, but it's just a really great game. And to me, this is what I always think about when I think of old Mario. I mean, there is the original Mario, but to me, it's Mario 3. And going back to it and just playing it even now, it's a great game. It's hard. It's difficult. There's, it's not perfect, but it's, still a fun game to play. And it's what, Mario's all about.
All right. So that's all three of us. They're like, hell yeah, Mario Brothers 3, even with your lack of a battery save. Shame on you, Nintendo. But that concludes probably one of the biggest games that we've ever covered on this podcast. 35th anniversary for the North American release of this game that so many of you love. So maybe this will give the listens a listen bump, I guess. That's not why we do this, but, well, kind of. But we've had 2 obscure games, so I'm happy that we finally covered this one, which, we normally don't cover huge games. So I'm happy we did. Ryan, I'm so happy you got to join us for this big episode, just knowing that you've pretty much been with us since the beginning. And I couldn't think of a more appropriate guest for one of the bigger games that we've covered, probably the biggest game that we've covered here on the podcast, just because you have been here longer than anybody. And that does mean a lot. And that's not to just diminish any other of our listeners' presence, because we do have a great community and we love you all. But like Ryan is he is the OG. So thank you so much for being here and joining us on year 5 now. It really does mean a lot to me that you've stuck around, you continue to come back, and we continue to have these great recordings with each other.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, guys. It's always fun. I love your guys' podcasts, and just keep doing what you're doing.
I also like that Chris specifically said it means a lot to him and not us.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean us.
It's like, it means nothing to me.
I was going to give you an opportunity to say it yourself. Damn it.
Sure.
But
yeah.
fine.
No.
Fine. I need to speak for both of us. That's what I need to do.
Sure. Yeah.
You guys are
Makes
partners.
my life easier. Well, anyway,
I see what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be it for us. So if this happens to be the first time you have listened to the show, maybe you caught it somewhere and you're like, oh shit, they're talking about that game that everybody else has talked about ad nauseum. I should check that out. Well, thank you. First of all, I question your decision-making process, but you know what? You do you, because you're here. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy this episode, then we have a whole bunch of other stuff for you to check out as well. We are getting dangerously close to our official 10-year anniversary as a show. And so as a, happy byproduct of that, we have just so much content. It's just, honestly, it's maybe it's too much. I don't know. Like it might be, it feels illegal, but it's there. So, you should go check that out. And if you even want even more, like if you're that much of, a masochist and you're just like, nah, man, I have burned through 300 plus episodes of Retro Hangover and I need more, then you know what? We got you covered. Cause we, there's nothing stopping us from giving you even more stuff, so check out the Patreon. You could get even more content for as little as $1. So there you go. If you just want to just overload your, well, I'll say phone because I don't think anybody even knows what an MP3 player is anymore. So phone, overload your phone. Then that's a pretty good way to do it. So you can find that, our merch store, our socials, all the goodies at our Linktree. Please go over to Linktree/Retro Hangover and you know, search that stuff out. Go wherever the wind takes you. Chris, anything that you would like to add before we wrap this thing up in an uncharacteristically somewhat succinct fashion?
If you want to go watch our streams on YouTube or Twitch, preferably probably Twitch. Twitch is your best bet. Just head over there on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to be playing a video game of some kind. And our discussions have not been as vile as usual, so please go over there and tell us about how you would like to fly while fucking a pig, as Shane said at the beginning of this episode. You know, pigs are kind of like humans, I've heard. So maybe fucking a pig in the ass is kind of like fucking a person in the ass. And if you're from, you know, parts of the world where that is acceptable, then please let us know if that's the case. You know, where it's acceptable to fuck a pig in the ass. I'm pretty sure it's, well, never mind.
Like,
anyway,
where is that? You know what? I don't even want to know. Never mind.
Yeah, sure. So if you fucked a pig in the ass, please come to our YouTube stream or Twitch stream and let us know if it's like fucking a person in the ass. This is valuable information for a friend. Shane? Okay,
great. So now that we've bookended this episode, you know, just very appropriately, we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. So with all of that,
like you should before fucking a pig.
That is true. Yeah. If you're going to, you got to at least be safe, you know, about it. Make smart choices in that scenario. Anyway, until next time,
play with your When Pigs Fly joysticks.
And you know what? We've got so much other stuff for you to check out as well.
Ryan plugs.
I mean, fucking, why you interrupting me with this? Like, we could edit it in after. Damn it.
You're on a roll. You were on a roll.
Yes, thank you for identifying that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I don't know the plug. Shane just finished.
Okay, fine.
You sound like a bored lover.
Yeah, like, just finish. God damn. Okay, now I don't even know where I was. Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.